and welcome from RadioW.O.R.K.S World even. That's not the best of starts, is it, this week? So there we go. Let's hope that's the one and only slip up. It's my absolute honour and privilege this week to introduce to you a man who spent most of his life in self-employment, one of the most humorous and positive people I've had the fortune to get to know over the years, and also a round-the-world yachting crewman. I'm being very careful with the terminology here because I realise I got it a little bit wrong earlier on, and I've been put right for that. So, to tell you a little bit about the man himself, Russell, if you'd like to share a minute or two about who Russell Hallett is.
Cool.
Russell, it's over to you.
Thank you, Roger. It's great to be here. This is a new experience for me. So yeah, my name's Russell Hallett. I live in a little market town called Crewkerne in Somerset in the UK. And for the last 30 odd years, I've been self-employed, and every now and again I have had to dip my toe into the world of employment, just a means to the end of paying the bills. But I've sort of had the fortunate thing of my trade is engineering, and I've never been out of work. I did have a small stint, but you can't really count that. So I have the skill, and it's kept me employed for the whole of my working life so far. I have had the time to be able to work for some of the world's leading companies, although that sounds very posh. They are world leaders in their field. So it's just to take the time and learn your trade. You are in a position to be able to look after yourself. And sort of, I know it's now 9 years ago, but I did have the fortune when I had sort of time out that I did become a round the world yachtsman. And it's just a fantastic experience. So with all my engineering skill and expertise and the time of the adventure of sailing around the world, I've sort of gone along the lines of learning the importance of communication. And that's where I am at the moment, just sort of trying to put a product together and get something out there for us all to be able to learn and help each other and listen to the world of clarity of communication. I think that's where I am at the moment.
Okay, that's a great introduction there, Russell. Thank you very much for that.
Cool.
I'd just like to say to our audience as well at this stage, because of the platform we're now using for the Life You Deserve show, if you do have any questions at all that you'd like to put to Russell, please feel free to do so, and we'll be able to actually answer them for you live while we're on air. So that
give it a go.
Gives a little bit of a unknown twist to the show, as it were, stops it being predictable, which I don't think either of us are something that either of us are classed as there being predictable. So just thought I'd put that out there for the audience. So to put any other landlubbers like myself right then, Russell, would you be happy to explain to us the difference between the terms of skipper, round the world and legger, something I got a little bit mixed up with, it appears earlier on?
I will give it a go. Back in 2009, I was between jobs, and I came across an advert that I didn't have any understanding of what it was, and it turned out to be Clipper Around the World. And I had an interview, and it just came out of that in Gosport, thinking I want to do this. So Clipper Around the World is set up for completely amateur sailors. And to that extent, at that time, all I'd ever done was sail around the Isle of Wight. Well, it wasn't even that, it was just around the Solent. I sailed a bit of a dinghy back in my teens, and I tried a little bit on a catamaran. So to suddenly get the chance of sailing with a crew on a 68-foot racing yacht, it's just an unbelievable experience. So Clipper is the only professional crewman on that boat is our skipper, and he has the misfortune, or they have the misfortune of trying to gel 16 or 18 complete amateurs into becoming a racing team. And the other thing that Clipper sort of put together, as in my race, there was 10 boats. They have, for continuity to help the skipper, they have 10 round the world crewmen and ladies, and then the rest of the crew are made up with leggers. So from day one for the 10-month, and today's races are actually 11 months, from day one, the skipper has a hardcore 10-man and girl crew for the endurance and for the until the end of the race. And then the rest of the crew, which can be up to 18, they're leggers, so they can buy one leg, two legs, or a combination of any legs that they would wish to have a go at. I mean, there's one or two that sort of just do the first leg to get away from the UK. And we first leg on my race, first leg was down to Brazil, into Rio. And then there was an elderly gent, an American, who'd never sailed the Pacific. So his leg, all he wanted to do was race the Pacific. So there's the difference. The skipper is the guy that's actually paid for the job, and we pay the privilege of having an adventure to sail around the world. And of course, the big difference between Clipper and Volvo, which is going at the moment, as Clipper is going at the moment as well, Volvo is a fully professional crew. So the skipper there, in my mind, although obviously it's thoroughbred, the skipper on a Volvo has got a slightly easier job because his crew are professional. They all know what they're doing. Whereas our poor skippers, you're dealing with what can possibly be some idiotic positions where things just go dramatically wrong. And he's got to teach us how to solve it. So hats off to us, our skippers. They do have a bit of a challenge on their hands.
Right. And staying actually with the international round the world theme, just like to say hi to Heather Joy Bassett, who's saying hi to us from Melbourne, Australia at the moment.
Oh, hello.
I did promise you a global audience.
Yes, cool.
I've obviously kept my word there. Also, welcome to Claire and to Serpa as well. And hopefully I pronounced your name right there, Serpa. So those are the people amongst our audience at the moment, Russell.
Fantastic.
So a great start there. So the next question I've got to ask you seems almost a come down, actually, after such a great and exciting start. But what does legacy actually mean to you? I mean, obviously, what you've achieved there has got to be part of the legacy.
Yes.
I mean, what else does it mean to you?
I mean, your introduction to me, I always try and to be a happy chappy and have a bit of a smile.
Yeah.
And on one of our training weeks that we actually sailed around the Isle of Wight, we did go through some sort of force 7, force 8, and it was pretty bumpy. And my training skipper and the first mate actually came to me at the end, and they asked if I was all right. And I said, yeah, it's all good, it's all fine. And he said, we're using you as a barometer that we know if Russell is smiling, everything's all right. So I think my legacy is that I always try and have a bit of a smile, and I'd like, as you did very kind words in my introduction, that people remember me for a bit of a good time, and we're always happy.
Yeah, I can say from personal experience, Russell, that's how I've always found you to be. Just again, staying with the round the world theme. We've also got people on from Finland and Norway, in addition to Australia now and the UK.
Well, yeah.
Really are keeping the round the world theme going throughout the interview.
Yeah, it's good.
So, moving on, Russell, what does independence mean to you?
Independence. I mean, obviously, if we just go back with the boat, you are one of a crew, and the fact that your personal space, you could relate it to about the size of a coffin. Your bunk is 6'6" long and not much wider than your shoulders. So although you're part of a crew, you cannot get away from them. There is no room to be able to get away. So if there's any sort of ill feelings, you've got to be able to speak it out. Because you can't go to your bunk with an ill feeling hanging over your head. Now, apart from the fact of being a part of a crew, I've been in my self-employed world. I'm usually completely on my own. That I'm happy in my own company. So I am quite an independent sort of person. I can stand on my own 2 feet. I take responsibility for my own actions. And if those actions are wrong, I've got to sort of bear the brunt of the error. So yeah, I'm quite happy to be independent and face my challenges on my own.
Yeah, I think wording it in the politest way I can think of, with the respect I've got for you, Russell, is that what the massive thing that you achieved with the round the world yacht race. It's fair to say you weren't exactly in your teens at the time, were you?
No, I wasn't. I actually had my 51st birthday. Where were we sailing? We were sailing into Australia. So we were in the Southern Ocean when I turned 51. So yeah, it's a bit of a memorable day, I must admit. So as you said, I wasn't in my teens. Nor was I the oldest one there.
Really? How old was the oldest one, Russell?
Yeah, there was the American that wanted to sail the Pacific. He was well into his 60s. He was an experienced sailor, but yeah, he was in his 60s. That was his personal challenge. He wanted to sail the Pacific. So hats off to him.
Definitely, yes. And I think for anybody in our audience who's thinking, I can't do this because I'm too old, then
no.
Yourself and the American are the perfect example that that's not the case. In fact, we've just got a message from, I suppose, RadioW.O.R.K.S will saying you're getting younger each day, Russell. So
who said that?
That's from RadioW.O.R.K.S, our sponsors.
Sweet.
Very nice of them to say that. And very true as well, I'm sure.
No, I mean, it's also the other thing. I mean, because there was a couple of us around about the same age, but you've got people that were sort of 18 or 19. They were taking a bit of time out from before they went to university or something. So, there's the older generation, if you like. There's us that is a little bit of worldly wise, and then you've got a lot of in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s that are just, they've got a bit of money behind them and happy to take a bit of an adventure. So there's all sorts of people that do Clipper, and it's well worth having a look at their website, because I mean it's an awesome experience. Good, costs a lot, but it's good fun.
Yeah. I'm sure yourself and the American chap that you mentioned, we can take a lot of inspiration from that. But where else do you take your inspiration from, Russell?
I mean, with what I'm trying to do at the moment, I mean, these are obviously names that you've come across yourself. I mean, there's good old Andy Harrington, and there's Cheryl, and there's Dee. So just trying to sort of get my head into where I want to go with my communication products and my ideas. So I'm never too old to learn. So I'm always sort of picking up new stuff, and I've sort of come across various characters. I'm recommended to read their books, their biographies. So there's plenty of inspiration around, and it's just a matter of making time to sort of absorb it, really. Yeah. Always ready to learn.
And how important is it to you to inspire others, and how do you go about that, Russell?
Because I'm quite insular in my work, because I mean, where I'm working at the moment, I mean, the guy's got a bit of a niche product, and he's sort of falling in. He's engineering, and he's very good at his job. And he's just, over the last few months, he's just fallen into a niche product of making very old-fashioned nuts and bolts for a steam engine restoration. It's just quite quirky, really. That here is something that's over 100 years old, and he's making brand new stuff to keep these things going. So sort of, I like to feel that I do inspire people, and with the groups that we do with the speaking academy and all that sort of stuff, that it's a two-way street. There's all these people like yourself we're all there. We've all got our story to tell, and listening to people like yourself and others, and then they in turn listen to me. So we all sort of inspire and learn off each other, and possibly a bit of a wise head on old shoulders. But life's a university. We all learn something, and hopefully be able to be in a position to pass it on. That's what I like to think, anyway.
Yeah, I would totally concur there, Russell, to be honest.
Also, from Singapore, I sailed into Singapore.
I was going to say we've got Singapore and France joining the.
We sailed into France. We started in France. Yeah, the Bay of Biscay, in La Rochelle.
Right, I think there was just a question popped up there, but unfortunately I missed it. So I hope we may get that back again.
I'm not getting questions.
It did just flick up on the screen for a moment. So
right.
Hopefully it'll be back, and we'll address it then. So obviously, Russell, you're a man who's lived a very sort of exciting and varied life. What would you say in life up to now, when it sounds like there's a lot more to come for you, to be honest, with your outlook? What's been your biggest fresh start?
My biggest
fresh start?
Fresh start. Because if it's sort of just, I know I keep going back to the sailing, but it was such a big time of my life. That adventure cost me everything I had, everything I got, and everything I had. So for the last, since 2010, I've been renting my sort of a small flat. And although the backdrop that you see behind me does look a little bit scruffy, it is. I try and keep it as an office, but at the moment it's becoming a bit of a storeroom, because my new start in the last few months is I've picked up a building project that is a retail property that has got planning permission to convert into a 3-bedroom bungalow. So there's a new challenge I've just taken on, bit of a building job, 1,200 square feet, and my budget doesn't allow me to get the tradesmen in, so I've got to do it myself. So learning as I go.
Man of many talents, Russell.
Man of many talents, yes. It's good fun. It is good fun. I've done all the demolition now. I've just got to start putting it all back together again there.
Yeah, you're certainly not a man that shies away from new experiences, are you?
No. Take a challenge, front on.
Great outlook. And moving on then to empathy. What does empathy mean to you in your life, in your business, and what is your take on it in the world in general, please, Russell?
Empathy. My understanding of empathy is that you have an understanding of others, that people possibly have gone through the same troubles that I have, and that there is a level of sympathy. That's how I understand empathy. So in my married life, I mean, I've now been divorced longer than I have been married. So I've got empathy with people that have gone through divorce. I've been on the fringe of bankruptcy, so I've got sympathy for those that have gone through financial turmoil. I've started my own business, so I've got serious empathy with that, of those that want to have a go. So yeah, all in all, I think I've got empathy with quite a few groups of people. And again, it's going back with the sort of wise head on old shoulders, that I think I could help that. You know, those that have gone through trauma, because I mean, some of the things we went through on the boat did shock a few people, and sort of some moments of shock. So trauma, emotional, financial. Yeah, I've been through it all a little bit, so I do have a lot of empathy. Covers a broad base.
It certainly does, that Russell. I know communication's a big thing to you, and you're developing a product on that at the moment. How are things going with that?
Slowly, because I mean, it's just, you know, a day job to pay the bills, and trying to do a building project, and trying to do my communication products as well. So it is, there's not enough hours in the day, but it's sort of going through the sort of my engineering skill bases that for 20 odd years I heat treated metal. Now you don't need to know the technicalities of that, but it is quite a specific skilled niche that the engineers require. And if they don't pass me the relevant information, then I can have huge damage to their product. That if they've given me the wrong information, potentially I could either crack it, so you just end up throwing it in the scrap bin, or it doesn't go hard, or it doesn't go hard enough to what they want it to do. So the importance of communication, even in my engineering experience, is so important. But then going in with the sailing, the fact that you're in very hostile, potentially hostile and life-threatening situations, your communication from your skipper has got to be so precise. There's no room for misunderstanding. The clarity of communication is so important. And we were in life-threatening situations. And we had an almighty catastrophe in the Pacific when the American Coast Guard had to fly down. And I mean, we lost our mast is what happened. In the midst of a storm, we were knocked over and we lost our mast. And we blew all our communications. We had no power. We managed to get the engine to start, but that was about all. And we had to trigger the emergency beacon, which is a very clever little device that just chatters a signal away to the satellites. But there was no way of communicating that as a crew we were okay. So the recipient of that message, of that ping across the satellites, they had no idea if our boat was sunk. Were we in life rafts? Were we there? So the American Coast Guard had to come down, and they flew down from Alaska. Our nearest land was Hawaii, which was 1,500 miles away. But the American Coast Guard had to fly down from Alaska. So that just gives you some indication that we were just in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And we as a boat knew we were okay. We did have one gent with a serious head injury, and he had to be medevaced out the next day. But of course, when you can't communicate your situation to somebody, you end up having to wait for the American Coast Guard to find us, and it took them 10 hours. So, you know, the fact of communication, I know we were sort of rescued due to technology, but the fact of our skipper, we had a seriously broken boat, and we just have to work through the situations and talk to each other, and moral support to each other as well, because we did go into shock, and to confront for those of us that were on deck, and I was one of them, to go below deck and then actually go back up on deck still in a storm, that's quite a scary situation. So we did have, you know, a small crew all huddled around each other, moral support to each other, and life goes on. You've got to get that boat going. You can't sit back and just let somebody else do it. You're all in it together. And we did have a very, very nasty situation. So communication to me is very, very important. Or the clarity of communication is very, very important to me. Get your point over. Keep it brief. Be precise. Be specific. Listen is another one. If skipper's ranting on at you and you're not listening, you're still in trouble. Thank you. Yeah, I just see that one come up.
Yeah, and I would really agree with that. It was an amazing story. I mean, to be sort of in that situation for 10 hours, not knowing whether you were going to survive it or not, I just can't imagine what it must have felt like.
It was odd. Yes, it's not a daily occurrence, you know. It's I mean, a landlubber like myself before. All right, we all drive cars. We all, you know, you go on the bus. Yes, you can go you step off the pavement and you get knocked over. But to actually go into an environment that potentially could kill you, it's a straight. I mean, unfortunately, Clipper have had some fatalities lately as well, and it's so hard to read. And to be in the situation we were in the Pacific, and now read the threads that have come through from Clipper where boats have lost crewmen. That is so heart-rending. So the sympathy that we have, because Clipper is basically a big family now, and it's just heartbreaking to see this. But then you go onto this boat knowing potentially that you're not going to come home. You've got to be realistic about it, and that's the other thing. You've got to face your challenges and be realistic about it. Suffer the consequences. Take it on board. No, bear the grunt of it. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. You just got to sort it out. Suffer the consequences of your actions or non-action, and that's not just sailing. That's business. That's family. That's relationships.
Life in general, I guess.
Yeah, just getting a bit general. Yes. Yes, I mean, if you make a mistake, if you make a decision, that decision at that point in time, that decision is always right. Always. Otherwise, you wouldn't make that decision. You'd make something else. And that decision may prove in the long term to be wrong, but you've got to take it on the chin and just work out the consequences of getting it wrong. Maybe step back and have another go. I keep having another go.
Yeah, I think one of my favourite quotes around that goes something along the lines of, "There's no wrong decision, just make the decision and then make it the right decision." So,
yes.
yeah, I do like that one, and you've just pretty much said the same thing there.
The same thing, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're coming to a T junction and you turn left or you turn right, whichever way you go, it's always the right way. It might turn out to be that it was the wrong way, so you've just got to turn around and go back. But as long as you're facing forward, it's always the right decision. At that time, at that point, at that specific point in time, it is always the right decision. Otherwise, you wouldn't make it that decision. You'd make it the other one.
True enough. So just before, just based on what you said about keeping it brief and as being specific and to the point, because I know you and I could quite easily go for international tangents, to be honest, because of the size of the audience we've got this evening.
My girlfriend keeps telling me I'm good at telling a story. Yeah.
So is there anything that you'd like to finish with by sharing with the lovely people of our audience this evening, Russell? Anything we haven't covered that you'd like to get out there?
I mean, wherever you are in your life, I mean, life is a big adventure. It's a big journey. And one of the things, we've got to try and have a bit of fun in there somewhere. And I know life can get so hard and so sort of heavy, but you need to lighten it up. We all go through bad times. Every one of us goes through bad times, but it's how you deal with it. And you just keep on going. I mean, to say people are so lucky with their fortune and their goodwill, that's not, luck doesn't just happen. It's perseverance. The more effort you put in, you will get there in the end. Just keep going with it. And one day, the bubble will burst and the champagne will flow.
Yeah. The only failure is to stop trying, as it were.
It is, exactly. Yeah. Don't ever stop. Just keep on going. Keep going forward. There you go. Just popped up on the screen there.
Russell, it's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you this evening. I really do mean that. And the happiness barometer has stayed sort of pretty much full all the way through, as we would have predicted it would have done. So thank you very much for that, Russell. Thank you for those kind words of inspiration to people of all generations.
Good.
And thank you very much to our international audience.
Absolutely, it's great fun.
In Australia, Singapore, France, UK, of course, that I've noticed. And apologies to anyone from around the world whose countries popped up and I haven't seen it. So, to Russell, thank you once again for being a great guest. And Caroline's just saying that she really enjoyed your story.
That's my lady love. There we go.
That's lady love, is it, Caroline? Hi, Caroline.
Brilliant, Roger. Thank you.
Thank you very much again, Russell. Thank you very much to the ladies and gentlemen, and even boys and girls, if they're still up at this time of our audience today. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of the Life You Deserve show. Until then, take care. From Russell and myself, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right then, Roger.